everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Sarah Irons. If you haven't been here before, welcome. This is a mortgage information and tips channel which is designed for me to share my knowledge with you to help you achieve your property goals, whatever they might be for 2021 and onwards. So I feel well placed to share my knowledge with you. I've been a broker myself for 16 years, the last 4 in commercial finance. I have been a landlady. I'm halfway through my first development. I've been in a estate agency before. I've done numerous property courses. I love everything to do with property and I'm really passionate about it. And if I can help you by sharing my knowledge, knowledge is power. I have basically launched a new series on my channel. It's aimed at the newbie to property, so anyone embarking on their first purchase or second purchase, remortgage, or maybe first and second buy-to-let property. This is aimed at you, and there are 12 mini episodes within this series, which is the residential home back to basics. If that's something that will interest you, then please keep watching. This little mini episode is the process from start to finish, what you can expect by the first time you walk through or pick up the phone to a mortgage broker. Everything's more by phone nowadays, used to be a bit more face-to-face, but I'm sure we'll get back to that. But either which way, hopefully you'll pick up some information that can help you better prepare when you're meeting a broker or going to the bank if you prefer to do it on your own. Although the bank process is a little bit more long-winded than it would be going to a broker, so we'll stick with the broker process for now. Okay, so you decide you want a mortgage, you don't really know where to start, you've been recommended a broker, you give them a call. When I first speak to a client, there's about 10 questions that I will ask them which will quickly enable me to ascertain whether I can get them a mortgage or not. Those things are date of birth, whether it's a joint application or one person, incomes and how those incomes are generated, debts, if there are any, adverse credits, any mispayments, CCJs, defaults, bankruptcies in the background, dependents, how many children you've got or anyone living with you that depends on you under the age of 18, any other properties you might have in the background or any maintenance payments you might pay for. Then normally that would give me a very good steer just with the answers to those questions on what I'm going to do next with that client. Anyway, after you've done that, I'll quickly have a chat with them. They'll tell me the summary of what it is they're looking for. We might I'll do a few calculations on the phone and give them a guide based on what they've said as to maybe the loan size or approximate loan size. And we might have a look at Trigold where the rates are, just to give them a bit of a steer. This wouldn't be advice at that point. I would then tell them about my company Abacus Financial Options. That's where I am a self-employed broker, whole of market. It means we can see all of the lenders. We do sometimes get exclusive products. We do have a fee which we charge on completion for any residential or buy-to-lets. We explain that. We explain that we're directly authorised with the FCA and what that means. We send out a privacy document and get them to sign that, because obviously they'll be giving me their personal information and we'll be holding that on our systems, although they're very secure, as you can imagine. In the financial industry, compliance is key and it's excellent, so there's no need to worry about that security. But we do get you to sign a privacy agreement because we do hold and collect quite a lot of personal data. We send you an initial disclosure document which will basically format everything that I verbally tell them on the phone. We send them a fee agreement so that again they can actually read it through in their own time. We ask them to sign that, so we've got those 3 things on file at the get-go. Next we would arrange the time to do a fact find. I will give the client some advice on the sort of things I'm going to be asking them for, and then they will give me a call or I'll give them a call. It used to be face-to-face, but now we can do things on the phone, and we will spend about 40 minutes going through a fact find. So a fact find is then me asking them questions about them and I input it into my fact find system, and this goes through everything from personal details, name changes, national insurance numbers, maiden names, bank details, ID details, income details, debts, dependents, adverse credit, any properties they have in the background, any insurances they've got, do they have a will, do they have a pension, do they have savings and investments. We do a budget planner, we ask for assets, liabilities. We ask what solicitor they want to use. And if they've got a property that they've already made an offer on, we ask for the property details, the estate agent details, what type of property it is, when the year it was built, and the purchase price, obviously, or if it's already owned, the value of that property. So that pretty much covers everything on that fact find. Once that's been done, then the broker will be armed with all the information they need to then start offering some advice, and they will go away, they will do some research based on the information they've been given. We personally use some software called Trigold. This is where all the mortgage products are. It's regularly updated, so it's kept up to date. Sometimes there'll be more quirky specialist lenders that aren't necessarily on Trigold, but we know who they are, so we would phone those individual lenders. And once we have done our research, we will come up with a product that we think is right for that client, and we will recontact the client and tell them our research. We might give them a couple of options of maybe a 2-year, a 3-year or a 5-year fixed versus a tracker, repayment over various terms depending on their age, and then we'll come up together with something that they feel comfortable with, and we'll agree that that's the route we're going to take, that's our plan A, and then we will move forward to start that mortgage application process. At this time, I will then ask the clients to send me the last 3 months bank statements, last 3 months pay slips if they're employed, last 3 years accounts, or last 3 years tax calculation and overviews. All of this covered in another mini episode, so you get really clear full details on the income, paperwork needed, and how the lender will assess that income. So I know that is quite key, probably the key one that most of you will want to know, so please watch another episode for all of that. We will also ask for ID, we might ask for a credit report, we might ask for a mortgage statement or any tenancy agreements they might have in the background, just depends on the scenario. But that's really sort of the main things that we'd initially ask for to get going. We would then start the mortgage application. So with a mortgage application, there's 2 parts to it. First of all is the decision in principle or agreement in principle. So AIP or DIP. You might hear brokers refer to a DIP or an AIP. It means decision in principle or agreement in principle. They're exactly the same thing. When you apply for an agreement in principle, it's like the first half of the mortgage application is done. Enough information is given for the lender to then do a credit check. When that credit check is done, if it's accepted, if the score is high enough, they like the profile of the client, then they will produce a agreement in principle accept certificate. Some estate agents do like to see that certificate, so you might want to actually come to a broker and do up to this point before you actually go and search for a property. That way you're armed with a mortgage in principle. You might need to tweak the figures slightly once an offer is accepted, but it gives the estate agent comfort that when you're making offers, you do actually have a mortgage in principle agreed already. So that can be a really top tip to be negotiating hard, especially in these times where there's sort of 10 buyers for one property. So you want to be in the best possible position you can be. After that agreement in principle or decision in principle is accepted, we will then tell the client. If they are then happy to move on to the full application, at this point, that is when the mortgage really gets going. It will be fully applied for and the process starts. So we warn them about that, they're happy to proceed, we then go ahead and do the full application. Once the full application is done, then the mortgage is in and the ball starts rolling. We've already collected the data that the lender might want from the client. We package the case and create a file. The lender will then ask us for a list of requirements. So they might want to see the latest bank statement, the latest payslip, and we will then send that over to them. At this point, my mortgage actually gets passed to an administration team. I'm very lucky to have one. They are excellent. Most brokers will. It doesn't matter if they do or not, the job will still get done and be done very well, but chasing the process of the mortgage after application is really important. You don't want things to get left, or at the moment lenders can take quite a long time, so you want it to be as slick as possible, and you want to send everything to the lender if you possibly can in one hit, so that when the underwriter's looking at it, he's got everything he needs to either quickly accept the underwrite subject to valuation or ask for something extra if there's an extra question or two he might have from something he's seen. Once that is done, the underwriters of the lender has sent us their list of requirements. We've uploaded those requirements to the lender and we now sit and wait for underwriting to be done. Some lenders will instruct the valuation on day one before the underwriting is done. If it's free, a free valuation, which sometimes it is, then that's fine. They can go ahead with that. It will speed up the process so everybody's winning. If the client has to pay for that, then sometimes we put that on hold. We get the underwriting done first, and then once the underwriting is satisfied, then we release the valuation. And that way, if anything was to come up in the underwrite that we weren't aware of, the client wouldn't have already spent their money on the valuation and wish that they hadn't, because now we couldn't proceed with that lender. So once the valuation has been instructed, if that comes back and all's well and the underwrite is complete, that's the lender's job done, and they will then produce something called a mortgage offer. Once you have your mortgage offer, that is the mortgage agreed, and you can then, that gets sent to the solicitors, and you get a copy and the broker gets a copy, and the mortgage is done. And now it's just down to legals to finish off the process of your purchase. So once it goes to legals, they will then start to do the searches for you. They will send you out a pack, which has quite a tiresome bit of paperwork in it that you need to complete and send back to them. Once their searches are in and everything's satisfactory, they may want to see you face to face. Nowadays, not so much. And they will tell you that they're either ready to complete if it's a remortgage or exchange if it's a purchase. Once you get to exchange, we really heavily advise that you have your building insurance in place. Once that building exchanges, you are responsible for it, despite the vendor still living there. I know it's a little bit strange, but it is very true. So if there's a week between exchange and completion, please put building insurance, because if the vendor accidentally burns the property down after exchange but before completion, you're liable for that debt. So it's really important, and really the solicitor shouldn't allow you to exchange without seeing sight of that building insurance certificate, but sometimes they do slip through the net. So that's one massive thing to protect yourself. Make sure you've got your building insurance in place on exchange. Now, once you've exchanged, what would normally happen is the solicitor would then call for the lender to release the funds. And then the funds are released from the lender and they're placed into the solicitor's bank account. And they can be in the air for maybe 2 or 3 days somewhere with a sort of bank transfer of that sort of size loan. So there's normally about a week between exchange and completion. So, and it's for that reason. It's just for the time that it takes for the funds to drop into the solicitor's account. When the solicitor has those funds, then he will contact you and say, I'm ready to complete. And then as soon as you set that date for completion, the funds will switch between the solicitors, and you will then complete, and you will be notified by your estate agent or your solicitor that completion has taken place, and you can either go and collect your keys, or if you've done a remortgage with any capital, you will not receive your cheque for the extra money that you've drawn down from your mortgage. That process for a purchase would typically take 8 to 12 weeks. At the moment, it can sometimes take longer because the lenders are so inundated with work. And if you pre-prepare, so if you watch my episodes and you pre-prepare and become the best possible client that you could for a broker and for a lender, then your application is going to be a lot quicker. And if it's speed that you want, I would really be checking when you're choosing a solicitor, whether they have the capacity to take you on, what their timescales are. Sometimes going for the cheapest solicitor isn't always a good idea if you want speed, so that's something else to bear in mind. So that's pretty much the process of a purchase and a residential. A remortgage, on the other hand, would probably take 3 to 4 weeks because you don't have the same legal searches, etc., that you would do on a purchase. You're not waiting for a second party to send you back information. For example, the solicitor will be speaking to the vendor solicitor and relying on them to send back information, so that might not come back in a timely manner. So the timing's a little bit out of your hands when it comes to a purchase, but a remortgage is normally much faster. So that pretty much concludes the process from the start to finish. Once we get to offer, we would normally send out some quotes for life insurance and critical illness cover, which we also do. It's obviously good advice for us to quote for this cover and promote that people protect themselves from these sort of large mortgage debts that they have throughout their lifetime, but they're not compulsory at all, but it's just part of our process. And just something I'll say on exchange and completion, because a lot of people get confused by this. So if somebody says I want to exchange and complete on the same day, it doesn't mean that you've completed a week sooner. It actually means that you've exchanged a week later, because it still takes the same amount of time for the solicitor to call for the funds and for it to land in the bank account. So the only delay in a normal process between exchange and completion is the time it takes for the funds to be drawn down to the solicitor's bank account. But exchange means that you've secured that property for yourself. So if you want to delay exchange and completion, well, people think that by doing exchange and completion on the same day, you're actually bringing it forward a week, but you're not. You're actually just delaying owning that property for a week because you're not exchanging until the solicitors actually receive those funds. So people get confused by that and think that it's sort of a clever thing that they've done by completing and exchanging on the same day, but you've only actually delayed securing that property for yourself. So yeah, just another little tip to throw in there. So any questions, please leave them below. This is your channel. I want to help you achieve your property goals. So any questions or anything you're unsure of, anything you want me to go over, any topics that you want to hear that I haven't yet done, please put them down. As I said, my goal is to help you with knowledge, sharing my knowledge with you. And yeah, it's hopefully will help you achieve where you want to go. So thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.